February 5th, today was a crazy day in the markets. Coming off of the 60 Minutes episode on Sunday the 4th, where Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell stated his case for potentially holding off on interest rate drops until after the March meeting. So this definitely threw a wrench into things today. And as you can see from the top headline here, almost all the indexes were in the red, um, which caused some major issues throughout the day for a lot of different stocks. Crude, however, was lower and then came back and made a move. So let's do a brief review today of what went on. So first thing, pre-opening, we saw ON Semiconductor report stronger than expected earnings. Although their estimates for the new year were not as strong as folks had hoped, the earnings were quite positive, so that shot up about $7, and that was a nice pop to the start of the day. If you held any on, it's come down from 109, 110 off its highs earlier last fall, so it still has a ways to go to climb back, but it's slowly making its way back. Now let's move back up to crude. So crude, as we can see here from the chart for the day, kind of started the day low 72 range and then dropped into the mid 71 range before popping back up into the 73 range and then falling back to close, or right now to exist at 72.80. So if we look at that and then we look at the other oil stocks, a lot of them certainly dropped at the beginning of the day, but some of them recovered quite nicely. Not all of them, however, which is a bit of a surprise, always an anomaly. But one of my faves, Valero, this had a really interesting day. And this chart, it's hard to see what I'm going to point out, but it's right around that 137.85 peak at the 10 a.m. hour. So if you look down here at this hour, what you can see is a really good head and shoulders pattern. So you've got the shoulder here, and then you've got the head, and then you've got the second shoulder, and then the drop. And what I just wanted to point out here is these types of setups are an amazing opportunity to get in and usually follow the stock up. Now, today was an exceptional example. In fact, my guidance would have been to sell in around here because it just kind of fumbled the ball. You never knew what it was going to do, and it could have fallen off as much as it had gone up. But this thing just climbed like a plane getting to a cruising altitude by the end of the day. And obviously, up $3 and change for the day, had a great day. But what you can see with the head and shoulders pattern is it opened lower and then fell down. And we typically don't want to touch a stock pre 10 o'clock or 9:45. So this is around the 9:45 mark. It's 9:42. It starts to make a move upwards and it peaks at what time is that? 10:06. And then it starts to fall off. So if you had bought it here, obviously, on somewhere in the downfall, and then sold it as it peaked, you'd been in great shape. But if you didn't have a chance to get out then if you had purchased a little bit more as it fell off down here at the bottom of the second shoulder, you would have been able to recover and sell your first position as well as your second position, likely at a profit throughout the remainder of the day. In fact, before 1 p.m. So that was just a head and shoulders setup that I wanted to point out there. I think Valero is going to pull back a little bit, but who knows what crude's going to do. It's all over the map with what's going on with all the fighting in the Middle East. Another one that's kind of popping in a range right now is SLB. Can't pronounce the full name of it without making a mistake, but I love to pick this up anywhere in the low 48 range and then sell it in the high 48 or low 49 range. And it had that kind of setup today where you could pick it up in the 48.24 range and sell it at 49 and then get back in and hopefully sell it again at some point. The other one that was really interesting today was Con Ed. So Con Ed's a utility. It's typically relatively stable. It hit 92 a few days ago. So if we look at the 5-day, it went up to 92.82, which was a little bit strange, to be perfectly honest. It's coming up to earnings. I think earnings are going to be expected. I don't think we're going to be into anything odd coming out of earnings for a utility. But it's had a lot of momentum. And then at the end of the day here, you can see it just fell off the side of a cliff. It wasn't a huge drop. I mean, it was only down probably $1 from its high, but it was still a significant movement down. It would have been a great opportunity to pick some of this up tomorrow because I think it'll recover back into the mid 90s, if not tomorrow, in the next couple of days. The one stock that's kind of been doing very little, even after good earnings, is Exxon. And I think Exxon is ready for a move upwards in the next 1 to 2 weeks. Because Chevron had similar great earnings and it has had some better movements in the market in the last 5 days. So you can see after earnings, it kind of popped, particularly on Friday, and has kind of stayed the course there. But Exxon has not. So I think there's opportunity there. I still, for Canadian holds, I really like Cenovus. 10 days till their earnings. I think the earnings are going to be great. Another one that kind of popped into my buy range today, and I bought a little bit of it, was Enbridge. Enbridge is a super solid stock. Again, oil and gas kind of related. It has earnings in 4 days. I think the earnings are going to meet or exceed expectations. So I think you're going to see an uplift into the high 40s, if not low 50s, which may be an exit point there, depending on what you're hoping to do with that. And then if we go through tech, Microsoft had a bit of a sell-off today. I think if you can get into Microsoft below 400, it's a strong hold for a long period of time. I got in and out of ARM today. I think ARM has some potential with earnings coming up because they're involved in everything to do with AI chips. I got out of a little bit of my position in ON today. I've kept more than 50%. I got out of 30%, kept 70%. The other one I like that I got into today, which is going to announce earnings Wednesday morning, is BABA. And I think there's a lot of potential here. Jack Ma and the CEO have been buying into BABA, and I think that there's a lot of potential in BABA. NVIDIA was a rocket ship today. Not on that ship, unfortunately. I would have loved to have been, but I got out in the mid 500s on that one. And Google's starting to come back. I still think Google's going to drop down to the 130s. I'm waiting for it to get to the 130s and make a purchase there. The other one I really like, if it comes down into the $6 range, SoFi. SoFi is like a fintech startup. They just had their first profitable quarter, where I think they made 40 million in the last quarter. They have a lot of potential. Morgan Stanley just downgraded them, and I think that's because Morgan Stanley is buying them en masse and trying to buy them at a discount. So I think it's a bit of a positioning play there, but I think this stock has the potential to go to 14 by the end of the year, if not 21, based on what it's achieving and what its growth trajectories look like. So that's kind of a wrap for today, and that is February the 5th.